Hi, I'm Lorraine. My sister begged me to save her life after she got me labeled mentally unfit and cost me the career I built from nothing. They said I was unstable, then used my silence to paint me as the one who needed saving. But what happens when the family that broke you asks you to be their hero? Have you ever been gaslit by your own family? Ever felt like you were the villain in someone else's story? What time are you listening to this and where are you watching from? Drop a comment. I want to hear your voice too. The email came just as I was sliding a carton of oat milk into the fridge. A soft ping from my phone, followed by a preview of words I'd seen too many times before. We're having a small family dinner this weekend. It would mean a lot if you came. Valerie always knew how to wrap poison in pleasantries. The way she said small made it feel like I was being handed an olive branch, when in fact it was a matchstick soaked in lighter fluid. I stared at the screen for a few seconds longer than necessary before tossing the phone face down onto the counter. Then I saw it, still sitting where I left it 2 weeks ago. A sealed envelope marked medical records, untouched, just like the parts of my life no one had asked about in 8 years. Some wounds don't scab, they fester, especially when the people who inflicted them smile like nothing happened. 8 years ago, I had a career I loved. I helped people unravel knots in their minds while keeping my own just tight enough to be useful. Then came the meeting, the surprise HR summon that made my stomach drop the minute I walked into that cold, sterile room. 2 representatives, one I knew, one I didn't. A printout placed between them like a verdict. The accusation, inappropriate boundaries with my supervisor, emotional volatility, unprofessional texts. I laughed, I remember that, not because it was funny, but because it was surreal. This isn't real. Someone edited these. But they didn't care. The damage was done the moment the claim was submitted. My license was placed under review. I was placed on administrative leave. And the name at the bottom of the complaint? Amber Weidman, my cousin. I didn't get angry, I got quiet. It's a habit I learned young. When you grow up surrounded by people who weaponize politeness, silence becomes your only armor. But I remembered everything. Every raised eyebrow, every withheld question, every time Amber smiled at me across a family dinner and said, "Some women just can't handle rejection." No one called, not even my mother. Valerie told the family I was taking time to focus on my mental health. Amber told people she had intervened before things got worse. The narrative rewrote itself without my permission, and I watched from the sidelines as my name became shorthand for instability. I once overheard Valerie on speakerphone telling a neighbor, "Amber was just trying to help. Lorraine always had a bit of a temper." That was the moment I realized no one was going to save me. Back in the present, I picked up my phone again, stared at the message. I haven't seen them in years, not since Amber was crowned the hero of my unraveling. I typed, "Sure, I'll be there." Then I deleted it. Then I typed it again. I walked to my desk and opened the drawer I had avoided since my last therapy session. Inside was a manila folder labeled, in my handwriting, "Do not open." I peeled it back slowly. Inside, a printed copy of the original complaint, screenshots, clinical notes, email threads. A note written in looping, too familiar cursive. "Maybe next time don't make things so easy." I stared at it for a long time, not angry, just steady. "They think I forgot," I whispered to the empty room. "I didn't forget. I documented." Lorraine took a deep breath and slid the envelope into her bag. She's going to the dinner. It started with a ping. I wasn't even holding my phone when it lit up, just walking past the counter, my arms full of laundry. But I saw my name in a tag and paused long enough to tap it open. It was a photo of Amber in a pastel dress, standing under a balloon arch in what looked like Valerie's backyard. One hand on her chest, the other holding a microphone. The caption read, "Celebrating second chances, forgiveness, and the gift of sisterhood. #blessed to be family." My name was right there. I was the reason for the party. And I wasn't even told it was happening. My thumb hovered over the screen as I swiped through picture after picture. Amber hugging relatives. Amber cutting into a tiered cake decorated with little kidneys and daisies. Amber raising a toast. In the corner of one shot, I could see my mother, clapping. At the bottom of the post was a link to an article titled, "From Breakdown to Breakthrough: One woman's story of redemption through family. Amber's name was on the byline. I clicked it, even though I already knew. My sister struggled for years, it began. Mental health isn't easy to talk about, but I stood by her, even when things got messy. Now she's giving me the greatest gift, hope for a second chance at life. My name was mentioned 6 times. Each time felt like a blow. I hadn't approved this. I hadn't even been asked. They were building a monument out of my silence, shaping it into whatever narrative they liked best. I opened my email. No RSVP, no message, nothing but Valerie's previous note about hoping to see me soon. That night, my mother called. "Did you see the post?" she asked, as though we were talking about a baby announcement or an engagement. "Everyone's so proud." I sat on the couch, the light from my laptop glowing faintly across the floor. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Marlene hesitated. "We didn't want to put pressure on you. We know how you get when things are overwhelming." That was always their excuse. We didn't want to push, when in truth, they never wanted to deal with how I might actually feel. "I would have liked a chance to say no," I said. There was silence on the line. Then she said, "It was just a small thing, nothing fancy." I hung up. Not in anger, just to end the weightless conversation before it sank deeper into me. Later that night, I stood in front of my bookshelf and pulled down a folder labeled Truth. I didn't open it. I just placed it on the kitchen table like a guest I was finally ready to acknowledge. Then I sat down, opened my laptop, and typed a single line into a blank document. I was never mentally unstable. I was silenced. The cursor blinked. I stared at it. It wasn't revenge. Not entirely. But it wasn't forgiveness either. It was something else, a kind of reclamation. A reminder that my story had always belonged to me, no matter how many people tried to rewrite it. Ping, a new email, from Valerie. Subject line, "We'd love to quote you directly next time." I let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a choke. I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit record. The paper wasn't even supposed to arrive that morning. It was a delivery mistake, meant for the cafe next door, but I took it anyway, thumbing through as I restocked the bookshelf display at work. I wasn't looking for anything. I certainly wasn't expecting to see my name printed in bold, nestled under a headline that made my stomach drop, "The Power of Forgiveness, A Family's Journey to Healing." My fingers tightened around the edge of the page. Amber was quoted 3 times in the first 2 paragraphs. Valerie twice, a quote from a family friend claiming, "It's beautiful to see the family come together after everything they've endured." My voice was nowhere in it, my consent absent. But there I was, painted into their redemption story like a character who never had lines. I read it all the way through. And then again. Not because I needed to, but because I couldn't believe how well they'd rewritten the past. They didn't even lie outright. They just edited me out of it. They used my silence as a narrative. Again. That evening, I went to see my mother. She was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove, humming like nothing in the world had ever cracked her open. She smiled when she saw me, but I didn't smile back. "I saw the article," I said. She paused, spoon hovering midair. "Oh, that. Valerie sent that in, didn't she?" She nodded, avoiding my eyes. "She said it might help people." I crossed my arms. "You knew what they did. You knew it was Amber from the start." Her face dropped. She didn't deny it. Instead, she sighed, soft, tired. "I did. I couldn't say anything." "You knew," I repeated, my voice thin. "And you still let them drag me. You still let them destroy my name." "I didn't want to take sides," she whispered. "I was afraid of making things worse." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, really looked, and said, "You made it permanent instead." She didn't follow me when I left. 2 days later, we were both sitting in the evaluation room. Dr. Camille sat across from us, flipping through notes, her expression unreadable. "Marlene," she said gently, "did you ever witness anything that might support Lorraine's version of events?" My mother blinked, as if she hadn't expected to be called on. She looked at me, then back at the doctor. I don't know for sure," she said. "I wasn't there." It was a clean cut, deeper than anything Amber had said. At least Amber was cruel with purpose. This was something else, abandonment masked as uncertainty. Dr. Camille nodded, scribbled something. I stared at the floor. If I looked up, I knew I'd break, and I was done breaking in front of anyone. After the meeting, I sat in my car for almost 30 minutes. The silence wrapped around me like wool soaked in ice water. I scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. Then I removed it from my favorites. I opened a new message to Dr. Camille and typed, "If you'd like more context, I still have the original documents." Ping! Her reply was instant. "Yes, please send everything." The message came while I was folding towels. Amber, of course. The preview on my screen was too perfectly composed to be spontaneous. "Hey, just wanted to say, I've forgiven you. I know it's hard, but let's move forward." Forgiven me? For what exactly? I didn't respond. I didn't even blink at first. I took a screenshot and dropped it into the folder I'd renamed the night before. Performances. It fit nicely between a screenshot of the article she wrote and a picture of the cake she cut without inviting me. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. That came later. The room was cool when I arrived for the next evaluation. Camille's office always smelled faintly like eucalyptus and quiet. But today, Amber was already inside, sitting on the couch like she owned the air between us. Her IV port was exposed just enough to be seen. Her lips were pale, makeup deliberate. She smiled when she saw me. I didn't return it. Camille took a seat, glancing down at her notepad. "Amber, thank you for joining us today. I know this is difficult." Amber nodded, eyes already glassy. "It's been hard," she began, voice trembling. "I just wish Lorraine could see this isn't about the past. I love her. I'm scared." She paused, like waiting for a cue. When no one spoke, she added, "She's always been brilliant, but she shuts people out. I forgave her because I know that's just her way of protecting herself." Camille turned to me. "Lorraine?" I didn't say a word. I kept my expression neutral. Let the silence stretch. Let Amber stew in it. I nodded once. Nothing more. When the session ended, I walked the hospital hallway slower than usual. Not out of fatigue, just to let the moment stretch and settle. I kept hearing her voice. I forgave her. She didn't forgive me. She replaced me. This entire campaign, every article, every speech, every post, had turned me into the antagonist in her story of rising above. I'd spent years clawing my way out of a hole she pushed me into, and now she wanted credit for how well I climbed. I remember what she said all those years ago, when the investigation first started. We were in Valerie's living room. She leaned in, lowered her voice, and said, "Some people just want too much attention." That hadn't been an insult. It was a diagnosis, one she handed to everyone else before they could hand it to her. And now she wanted to pretend she'd saved me. I made it back to my apartment, kicked off my shoes, and sat at my desk. I opened my email, drafted a message to Camille. "Next time, I'd prefer one-on-one evaluation. I think it's important you hear me without a performance playing in the background." Sent. Then I closed my laptop, leaned back, and whispered into the quiet. That wasn't forgiveness. That was a trap. The file was buried between old insurance PDFs and a scanned copy of my lease. I found it after half an hour of sifting through folders I hadn't touched since 2018. My hands were steady. My breath wasn't. Amber's voice crackled through the speakers as if it were waiting for this moment too. "She really thought she was special," she laughed, her words slurred just enough to blur the cruelty. "All I did was hand-read what he needed. People like her always ruin themselves anyway." I paused the recording. The audio hung in the air like a smell you can't quite place but wish you hadn't caught. I clicked forward again, clipped the file, and dropped it into a clean blank email addressed to Camille. No subject line, no pleasantries, just one sentence in the body. Thought this might be helpful context. I stared at the cursor for a few seconds more, then hit send. Let's see if truth still matters in this family. 3 days later, Valerie showed up at Camille's office. I wasn't there, but Camille told me about it later, calmly, as if recounting the weather. Valerie had walked in with that signature controlled warmth, the kind of tone that could convince a jury or a priest. "This family has suffered so much," she'd said, hands clasped like a politician. "We just want to move forward." She let it hang there for a moment before leaning in. "You understand the importance of unity. Some things are better left in the past." Camille had simply nodded, made a note, thanked her for stopping by. She didn't mention that the voice recording had already been reviewed by the ethics board. The email came later that night. "Thank you for the submission. We will continue as scheduled. I've filed your documents with the appropriate parties." I exhaled, long and full. It wasn't relief, not quite. It was something deeper, something quieter, like my bones had finally stopped bracing for impact. For the first time in years, someone listened without asking for the other side. There was no plea for balance, no suggestion that maybe I had misunderstood. I wasn't defending anymore. I was presenting. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel safe either, but I felt aligned, like finally, the words matched the weight they carried. That evening, I walked past a cafe on my way home. Through the window, I saw them, Amber and Valerie. Amber was scrolling on her phone, smiling. Valerie sipped from a wine glass, leaning in to whisper something. I didn't stop walking. I didn't wave. I didn't feel anything except a flicker of recognition. They were still playing their parts, still scripting scenes in a play I had exited. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. If they come louder, I'll come documented. I saw her through the peephole before she knocked. Valerie, in her neatly pressed trench coat, holding a plastic container covered in foil. She knocked twice, soft like she always did, like she was coming to drop off kindness instead of control. "I baked those oatmeal cookies you liked," she said when I opened the door. "I haven't liked those since I was 12, I replied, arms crossed, blocking the doorway with my body. She smiled anyway, stepped over the threshold without being invited. I didn't stop her. She set the container down on the kitchen counter, looked around like she was assessing damage. Then she turned to me. No more smiles. Just straight to it. "If you back out now," she said, voice calm and rehearsed, "they'll never look at you the same. And honestly, I won't be able to defend you anymore." I didn't flinch. "You never defended me to begin with," she blinked, the first crack in her mask. For a split second, I thought she might actually apologize, but instead, she nodded, like she expected that answer. She left 5 minutes later. Never touched the tea I didn't offer. The ethics board meeting was scheduled for Friday. The conference room was sterile, lit too brightly for the kind of conversation it was meant to hold. I sat across from Camille. Valerie was already there, seated with tissues in her lap like a prop. Her head was slightly bowed, the picture of gentle grief. When the lead evaluator asked if the family had exerted any pressure on me, Valerie looked up, eyes wet. "We just want Lorraine to know she's loved," she said softly. "We're not forcing anything. I'm just a mother trying to save her child." No one corrected her. No one said, "You're not her mother." Camille scribbled something in her notes. I kept my eyes down. My jaw ached from how hard I was clenching it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor beside my bed, back against the wall, Valerie's words echoing in my head. I'm just a mother. A mother who stayed silent when I was destroyed. A mother who let her daughter build a legacy on my ashes. A mother who cried when people were watching. I thought of all the years I spent trying to be less, quieter, easier, less angry, less obvious. I thought shrinking would make me more lovable. It hadn't. I stood, pulled out a notebook from the bottom drawer of my desk, the one where I kept copies of every therapist's letter, every appointment confirmation, every version of my truth. I opened a blank page and started writing. Not for pity, for precision. A statement, not a plea. Something to read next time if they asked again. Something to make sure no one else narrated my silence. A ping broke the quiet. A text from Camille. "Can you join a closed-door session next week? No family present?" I stared at it, then typed, "Yes." Then after a pause I added, "This time I speak uninterrupted." The email came first, simple, brief, from Reed. "Can we meet? I think it's time we talk. Really talk." He suggested a coffee shop downtown, one that looked like it hadn't changed since the 90s. I chose a seat in the far corner where I could see the door. He arrived right on time, like someone who'd practiced regret just enough to make it believable. "Lorraine," he said, offering a tight smile. I didn't smile back. Reed. We sat. He ordered a black coffee. I already had mine. I've been meaning to do this for a while, he started. I owe you an apology. I said nothing. He looked down at the table, fingers tapping once, then twice. I knew about Amber. I knew she was exaggerating, fabricating even. But HR was breathing down my neck. They wanted a clean resolution. And I went along. I got promoted. You were collateral. The word hung there like rot in the air. I took a sip of my coffee. It had gone cold. Thank you for confirming, I said. He blinked, surprised at the flatness in my tone. Maybe he expected a breakdown, or forgiveness, or fire. You're not going to go public with this, are you? I didn't answer. I just stood. Back home, I didn't even take my coat off. I opened my laptop, pulled up the folder labeled collateral. 3 files selected. Amber's voice memo, screenshots of her conversations with HR, the letter from my therapist, dated, signed, precise. I attached them all to a new email. Subject, re-internal complaint, 2015 closure message body. You have 24 hours to choose how you want to explain this. I didn't CC Reed. I attached the final document and hit send. Then I sat back, exhaled slowly, and stared out the window. For the first time in years, I didn't feel cornered. I didn't feel wounded. I felt deliberate. They wanted me invisible. But ghosts have receipts. I picked up my phone and texted Camille. You'll probably be contacted. Everything I sent was real. Her reply came quickly. Thank you, I'll handle it from here. That night, the city was unusually quiet. Even the sound of traffic felt far away. I turned off every light in my apartment except the one above the sink, letting the dark settle around me like a decision already made. At 11:47 p.m., Reed's name flashed across my screen. One new email. Can we speak privately? I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I deleted the message and placed my phone face down on the table. No longer reactive, no longer waiting. I didn't need to yell anymore. I already had the mic. The envelope was thin, cream-colored, the kind of official that tries to look gentle. I opened it with hands that didn't shake. Based on the emotional trauma sustained by the donor, proceeding with this transplant would present unacceptable psychological risk. The board has reached a unanimous decision. Lorraine Shipman is formally disqualified from the current donor process. No medical jargon, no fluff, just the final word. I folded the letter neatly and slipped it into the folder labeled closure. The irony didn't escape me. How a single sentence could weigh less than a breath, but land like a door slamming shut. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat with it. For the first time, there was no next step. No appeal, no defense left to make. 42 minutes later, Valerie pounded on my door. She didn't wait for me to answer before pushing in. Her hair was frizzed from the wind, eyes bloodshot, mouth already mid-sentence. "She's dying, Lorraine!" she screamed. "And you're sitting here clutching your trauma like it's some damn trophy." I said nothing. She marched across my living room, flinging her purse onto the floor, arms flailing like she wanted the walls to listen too. "You had the power to save her. You did. And you chose to bury it in paperwork and bitterness. You just killed her. With your ego, with your silence, with your damn pride." Her words didn't sting. They didn't pierce. They just passed through me like wind across stone. When I finally spoke, it wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "No," I said. "I just stopped pretending I owed her my life." She froze. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time, she looked small. She stormed out minutes later, slamming the door behind her so hard it rattled the window panes. I didn't move. I just listened as her footsteps faded down the hallway. The apartment felt impossibly quiet afterward. Just the hum of the fridge, the faint buzz of my neighbor's TV through the wall, the tick of the clock above the sink. I thought the verdict would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like something heavy being set down. Not dropped, not thrown, just released. I picked up my phone. "Thank you," I texted Camille. "I won't be attending the final evaluation. It's done." Her response came within minutes. "I understand. I'm proud of you." I turned off my phone, not to avoid anyone, but to preserve the silence. Later, I walked into my bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. There, under an old sweater, was a small velvet box. Inside, a letter I wrote 6 years ago. It had been folded and refolded so many times the edges had frayed. I had written it the week after I lost my job. I thought back then I might give it to Amber one day, when she was sorry, when I was softer. I held it for a moment, then whispered, "I don't think she ever deserved it." I tossed the box into the trash without ceremony, and for once I didn't look back. The kettle clicked off as steam drifted into the morning light. I poured the water over the tea bag, the scent of chamomile curling into the quiet like it had been waiting for its cue. My apartment was still. No texts, no calls, no footsteps pacing just outside my door. My phone buzzed once, softly. I glanced at the screen. Amber's condition has stabilized, still awaiting a match. I didn't feel anything. Not relief, not guilt, just stillness. A knock interrupted the moment. I paused, holding my mug steady. When I opened the door, Marlene stood there holding a cardboard box, aged and soft at the corners, like it had been packed and repacked over the years. "I found this while cleaning," she said. "I thought, maybe you should have it." Her voice didn't shake, but it was quieter than usual. I stepped aside and let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch, holding the box between her hands like it might disappear if she loosened her grip. I sat across from her, letting the silence stretch until it became a wall we could both rest against. Inside the box were fragments of a different time. Old photos, a dried corsage from junior prom, a bracelet I'd lost during my second year of college, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope, yellowed at the edges. Marlene exhaled. "I should have said something back then," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I thought keeping quiet was keeping peace. I let the words sit between us. Then finally, silence can be louder than betrayal. But I appreciate you showing up now. We didn't hug, we didn't cry, but the space between us didn't feel quite so heavy. That night I opened the envelope. The handwriting on the letter was unmistakable. Jared's. The date in the corner was just over a week ago. "Lorraine, you didn't deserve what happened. I stayed silent too long. I thought being neutral made me less responsible. It didn't. I hope this truth sets you free, even if it can't fix what we broke. I've included the statement I sent to HR. It's not enough, but it's a start." The notarized statement was clipped behind it. I read it twice, maybe 3 times, then folded it and placed it next to the letter from the ethics board. The next morning, I walked to the post office with a small envelope tucked under my arm. Inside, a copy of Jared's statement and a handwritten note to Camille. "Thank you for believing me before the world did." On the way home, I passed the park where Amber's birthday party had been years ago, the one where she got the big cake, and I got a seat next to the trash cans.